Let me just start by saying, Beth, I hope you are about to tell me I am wrong, because what I'm about to go through is a fear that I have down to my bones. And I'm hoping you could say, Michael, don't worry about it. It's over. You ready to go?
Yes.
So my fear, based on the performance in February of existing home sales, greatly, exceeding expectations, right, up from 4 to 4.5 million, basically because of the leftovers from November and December. We now know, with at least I believe I can say, we now know 6% is interest is a game changer for buyers, aka demand. I believe we can also say, as I've been featured in Fortune magazine, saying that 6% does nothing to get the move up buyer off the sidelines. Historically speaking, people have stayed in their homes 4 to 8 years before they become a move up buyer. I now believe with every fiber of my body that the spring selling season is going to be a dud for years to come. What you have experienced in King County that usually starts in January and thus far has not materialized, I am here to tell you it is not going to materialize for 2 or 3 years. We are going to be below trend on new listings, below trend on inventory, and it is going to be most acute at the first time home buyer homes. Beth, please tell me I am wrong.
I'm not going to be able to do that today for
Oh,
you. So I'm
no.
sorry. I wish I had better news.
Oh, come on. You're a
Yeah,
real estate agent. You're
I
supposed to be
know.
glasses half full. You're
I know.
supposed
It's
to
all
tell me it's
everything's
all.
always great in real estate land, right? No. I mean,
Oh,
yes, we've been
man.
talking about this for a little while. So I'm in the greater Seattle King County area for those who don't know. And every year I've been doing this for 25 years now, and every year we see these similar seasonality happen where it's out of the chute, off and running in January, mid-January,
And what
off
off
to
and
the
running
races.
means is you get sellers and you
Yeah.
get buyers. It's the
Yes.
joint forces. Today you just have one of those two. The other one's on strike.
I know they're just sitting back and waiting, and the numbers don't work. And if people aren't motivated enough to put their house on the market and trade up for something that's going to have a much higher payment because they're locked in at a low rate, it is a little bit like people are in this kind of, they have this lock-in effect where it's keeping the move up seller slash buyer, and that's two transactions not happening there when they're not selling and buying. They're
Exactly.
looking at remodeling. One thing I'm seeing in my area is like they make it very hard and expensive and takes a long time to remodel and expand your house. So for some people, that pain is getting enough that they may end up selling their house after all.
Hmm.
But it's not as easy of a decision for a seller as maybe it used to be. And we're not seeing the inventory, it feels like December is when we have our lowest inventory, and it feels almost like that same level is just continuing on slightly better, but we're still
I mean,
seeing more
nothing. It's
pendings.
not seeing you squint in
I know,
late March going, oh, we're slightly better than December. Is like, that's got to make
slightly.
that makes me sick.
I know. And every week I look and see, and there's more pendings and new actives coming on. So that just means we're just pushing it lower and lower. And like we touched on in video one today, is that around this time last year is when I saw the market start to pump the brakes. And here we are, and it never hit the gas, so it never hit the
Yeah.
gas. And then we pumped the brakes, like we were crawling, and then now are we going to come to a stop? I mean, it never stops, right?
I
But it's
just
like
think we're gonna crawl. I think
we're just
that's where we are.
crawling along. It's going to be fewer transactions for a while now. But one of the things I'm wondering is, because that demand is still out there and those people that want to move still want to move, they're waiting for things to get a little more favorable for them to do it, or maybe the pain to get enough that it's worth it to them. But it's going to take a little while for them to get there. But I wonder, if rates start to come down later in the year, potentially, like if, the rate hikes are stopping, and, all those things you talk about in the daily financial news, like if that starts to kind of dwindle down and things start to correct a little bit later in the year, I don't expect it's going to happen right away, but in the coming months, and rates start to come back down, like you said, we did see when we got a little bit under 6 and everything just went poof
Yeah,
and
I
took
mean,
off.
demand comes faster. That's what this taught us.
Mm-hmm.
is demand is price sensitive at 6. What do you think sellers are price sensitive? I mean, you talk to sellers all the time. Where do you think where does a move up buyer who bought a home 2 years ago, 3 years ago, got plenty of equity, but has a 2.8% 30-year mortgage? What does the 30-year mortgage have to be for them to say, okay, I'm going to dump that. I'm going to get an extra bedroom in a little bit nicer area? It's not 6. We know that for sure.
No, it's not 6. It's hard to say. Maybe, but it's also not 4, I don't think anymore either. I think it might be 5. I'm just throwing that
Okay.
out there.
Yeah, I mean, we
People are
know it's
willing to
not
pay
6.
more, but but double payment, probably not. There'd have to be a lot of pain there. People are more pain driven than anything else. I mean, when the rates are really low, it might be like, oh, it'd be really cool to have this house over here in this fancy neighborhood that we've always liked. But now it has to be more like, we are busting at the seams and our life is getting really hard because we don't have enough room, and
Yeah.
my mom needs to move in with us, and what are we
It's
going to do?
multiple life
Yeah.
events. Before it
And
was, hey, my wife's pregnant. We need one more bedroom.
yeah,
Now
it would
it's
be
like,
nice to have a
we're
bigger
getting bunk
yard or
beds.
whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's like, our life is becoming really difficult because we don't have the space we need,
Yeah.
and we're driving too far to work, or I work
Yeah.
somewhere else now. I have to go back into the office now, and it's a long drive or whatever. Those multiple factors come in, and that pain is going to come to a point where it's like, all right, we're ready to just do it. We know it's going to cost more, but we're going to do it
Yeah.
anyway.
To my point, that's 2, 3. This season, dud. Next season, dud. The season after that, dud. Then might get better. And again, folks, we have this thing called the 52-year spreadsheet. You can actually go back and look at 80, 81, 82, 83. Beth, I think we had this conversation. It took 12 years
Yeah.
to get back to the previous peak in transactions. I don't think it takes 12 years, but
Yeah.
it doesn't take 12 months. This is going to be
No.
a slow grind.
And I'm one of those people. I have what are we? We're like a 3% more rate here, and it would take a whole lot for me to consider moving. I mean, I'm just basically not planning on ever. Well, and I'm an investor too, so I think I would just rent this house and buy something else if I had to.
Right. Yeah,
So
and that's a lot of people are going to make that choice. Again, if you have a 2.8% mortgage, you've seen inflation on rents, it is probably financially valid to keep it as a rental,
yeah.
5% down on your next home. So
The people who
lots
are
of things.
selling now are the people who are like the downsizing seller. The people who I work with, my typical seller has been in their home for about 25 to 30 years.
Oh,
A
wow.
long time. People that bought their house new back in the 90s or right around, they've been in their house a very long time, and now they're looking to sell, cash in their equity, buy cash somewhere else, go to where their kids are or whatever their next phase of life is. And those are the people who are selling right now more than
Yeah.
it. That's what I've been talking to more than ever. Not so much of the move up. There's still
Oh,
some, but
yeah, it's just the natural order of things is broken. That middle part is broken, right? The middle
yeah.
part is broken.
But it is true though that it's a lot easier for a buyer to decide to buy, especially a first time buyer, than a seller to decide to sell. It's always a much more complicated process for a seller to sell because they're involved. They have to move and everything that goes along with that, prep their house, find another place to live, blah, blah, blah. But for a first time buyer, they can just be like, oh, our lease is coming up in June. Let's just buy a house. Oh, rates are down. Great. Let's do it now. It's easier for them to come in and decide they want to pull the trigger and make a move. But if the inventory isn't there, I wonder if I do think that we're going to see a little more intensity later in the year. Now somebody's going to call me out on that and say, well, this is real estate
You're
agent
an agent. You're supposed to say that.
I know. It's like, I'm going to be fine no matter what the market does. And if I could say something to influence the market, wow, I wish I had those superpowers, right? If I could say something and make the market behave a certain way just because I said it, wouldn't that be amazing? I wouldn't need to be selling real estate if I had that power.
That power.
So,
yeah.
I'm not saying it because of that. I'm just saying like, this is what I see.
Well, let me paint the future, and then you tell me what would happen in that environment. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I think between today, call it late March, and the end of the year, I think the 30-year mortgage trends down, and I think we end the year in December somewhere with a 5 on it. 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, something with a 5. I believe new listings aren't coming. I believe, as I started this video and you validated, the spring selling season never happen. So that spike in listings never came. So you are going to be operating with new listings with life events, which is just less.
Mm-hmm.
Then we are going to see unemployment go up. Let's acknowledge that. It's going to go from 3.6 to 4.6. So some people will have job events, but jobs are generally speaking plentiful. They'll go somewhere else, but there
Yeah.
will be some layoffs. I think we're in a recession. I think Q2, Q3, Q4 recession. I think the Fed told us it's a recession, even though they didn't come out and say it, given
Right.
that Q1 will be 3% GDP growth. So, I don't think the rest of the year is going to be particularly good. But it also won't be horrible, right? If we go to 4.6% unemployment, that means what? 95.4% of us are employed. It means interest rates are down. So that's kind of the environment I'm in. And then again, we never get the inventory. That is the big surprise of the year. We never get inventory. And I'll give you one more thing. I think home builders are going to do shockingly well. That is the only lever or knob for supply.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've heard you talk about that, and it's really fascinating, and it makes sense to me. In my area in King County, Washington, Seattle area, there's no place to build, so there isn't really any new construction. Or what we do have is just it's infill, and it's has to be super high end because that's the only way it pencils for them. And it's very, very little new inventory coming on. In Seattle proper, they're tearing down old houses and building townhomes. So we do see a lot of that going on there, not on where I am on the east side. So there's just not a lot of the home builders have moved on because there's no
like no money to be made here. We're going over here.
Yeah, and it's extremely restrictive, and so I can see in other areas, and I do see in other areas where there's plentiful land and zoning allows, builders are going crazy and moving those houses because they can create their own terms with their in-house lending and get those payments where people need them to be. And that makes total sense. I don't think that's going to be our inventory solution where I am.
No, not
because
where
it
you
just
are.
never has been. And it's kind of like where you are too, probably same thing in the Bay Area, where it's just, if a new home's getting built there, it's going to be in the millions, and that's who's buying. It's
the
always the
lot
top of the
cost $1 million.
market. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So
So yeah, I think the spring selling season, and I don't think most people will start talking about it until after the summer. They're gonna be like, "What happened to spring?" It's
we're
not
seeing
coming.
it right now, but as we see, like the data trickles out months later after it's already moved on to something else. So keep that in mind, folks, when you're getting these case chiller numbers.
For
So
January.
long ago, it's a different, it's barely relevant at all. So the fact that it's that long ago, and even February numbers, we're going into April now, things are different, so it's just important to watch what's happening week by week, really. It's almost like every week has a little bit of a different pace and a different cadence, so basically it's just following what's going on out there from week to week. You'll see things kind of shift from hot to cold. And I think we're going from, because the spring selling season never happened, and where I am now, it's like it starts to wind down. I think it's still going to wind down. So what happens when there's no inventory and no buyers? It just,
oh my God.
A lot of agents, I think, just kind of are off doing other things right now. I'm still working hard because I always do. I don't know what else to do. I'm always doing stuff. I'm still selling houses, I'm still getting listings, thank goodness, but even for me, like transactions aren't what they were a year ago, but thankfully my business and my budget's flexible. Exactly. So we can adjust, because you always have to be ready to do that. Right. So
folks, if you want to be a part of One Rental at a Time, interact with Beth, you can join the course, How to Get Started One Rental at a Time. It comes with a free private Facebook group. If you want to buy or sell or ask her some questions, Beth, how would they reach out to you?
Yeah, so my website, BethTraversogroup.com, or you can just Google my name, Beth Traverso. I'm out there everywhere. And if somebody wants to be matched with I have a nationwide agent network. If somebody wants to connect with a great agent in my network, I can help them too. So I'm
top 1% agents got to have an amazing network. I think that would be well worth a referral. Beth, thank you so much.
Thank you.